Welcome to the DCNR Rivers Program breakout session for the 2026 C2P2 grant round. Let's get started. Thank you for your interest in DCNR's Rivers Grant Program. My name is Mary Hunt. I'm a Rivers Project Manager in DCNR's Bureau of Recreation and Conservation, and I am joined by my colleague Valley Edenbow, who's the Bureau's Rivers Specialist. Here's our agenda. We'll start with a program overview, then get into application guidance and what makes a competitive project. We'll share some ideas of other funding sources, and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. In the Rivers program, we advocate for Pennsylvania's waterways by offering grant funding and a series of initiatives to protect and enhance the conservation and recreation value of these precious waters. DCNR's Rivers program consists of scenic rivers, water trails, River of the Year, paddling sojourns, and waterway conservation and recreation planning and development grants. Today, we are focusing on grants. Please reach out to Valley at vedenbow@pa.gov if you have questions about the other program areas. Our Conservation and Recreation Planning and Development Grant Program priorities include projects that enhance public access to Pennsylvania's waterways or improve Pennsylvania's watersheds and waterways, or a combination of both. Our grant funding opportunities include Rivers and Waterway Conservation and Recreation Planning and Development grants, and Community and Watershed Forestry, or CWF grants. Today, we are talking about the Waterway Conservation and Recreation Planning and Development grants. For more information on CWF, please go to the DCNR YouTube channel to see that grant workshop breakout session. The Rivers program offers two different grant categories: Community Recreation and Conservation Planning grants, and Park Rehabilitation and Development grants, including waterway accesses. Projects that include both conservation and recreation will score more favorably. Planning-funded projects include waterway conservation and recreation plans, formerly known as river conservation plans. Under that planning stream, you'll see we have funded wetland and watershed restoration plans, water-based greenway plans, waterway access plans, and access management plans, just to name a few. We changed the name of the Rivers Conservation Plans to Waterway Conservation and Recreation Plans to capture the different scales of plans that can be done, and to additionally emphasize the Bureau's recreation priority. Plans may be done on a variety of scales, including entire river watersheds, portions of tributaries, or water bodies like lakes or bays. You will customize the plan type and deliverables to your study area. This planning grant opportunity also funds site-specific master site development plans for water-based conservation, restoration, and/or recreation projects for publicly accessible lands adjacent to waterways. Municipalities and nonprofits may apply. The overhauled Waterway Conservation and Recreation Plan scope of work includes the Bureau's Waterway and Master Site Development Plan priorities, which are defining existing and potential recreation and connectivity opportunities, public participation, climate resiliency, and stewardship and implementation. A list of data collection and analysis requirements and a grant deliverables and cost estimate checklist are provided in the Waterway Conservation and Recreation Plan, or WCRP, scope of work to guide you through the process. Consider your WCRP as a 5 to 10 year implementation plan depending on the scope and scale of your work. If you have an existing plan that you want to update, we fund updates as well. If you are considering updating a plan, generally speaking, the shelf life of a plan is 10 years. Recreation development projects include installation of waterside parks and water access parks, boat launches, fishing accesses, fishing piers, boardwalks, trails, wildlife viewing stations, and rehabilitation of existing waterside parks and water access parks. Conservation development projects include stream or wetland restoration, in-stream habitat BMPs and fish ladders, and small dam removals. Again, applications that address both conservation and recreation on Pennsylvania's waterways will be the most competitive. Here's some waterway planning project application tips and things to note. Waterway conservation and recreation plans and associated plan types require letters of support from more than 50% of the study area at the time of your application. That is required. DCNR provides a ready-to-go checklist to applicants for master site development planning projects. First and foremost, contact your regional advisor to discuss your project. Proof of ownership or control of the site through a minimum 25-year lease is required. There is no wiggle room here. A 50-50 match is required. If you are requesting $50,000 from DCNR, then you'll need to have $50,000 in cash and/or non-cash match. Oftentimes, applicants list match amounts in applications, but no commitment documentation is provided. Successful applications need to have a secured match and are required to upload a match letter from your organization summarizing the match being provided. You no longer need to load individual match commitment letters from the matching organizations. Upload a match documentation letter that identifies what is cash and what is non-cash match, including the name of the organization, cost per hour, number of hours, and total value of donated time, or the quantity of materials and total value. Your organization's staff time, if being used for match, must also be documented in the letter with hourly rate plus benefits, total hours, and total value of the commitment. Same goes for donated materials. On the budget, it will need to be realistic, accurate, and detailed. You might be surprised to hear that some applicants do not fill out the budget description column or break out the costs as defined in the different budget sections. Pretend you're in grade school and you must fill everything out to get credit. The scope of work needs to be clear, concise, and detailed. For example, include county and township in which the project will occur, name of the water body as applicable, lineal feet of restoration, size and width of dams or stream impediments, acres of associated plantings, and lineal feet of trail. For master site development plans and projects, you'll need a PNDI receipt, which is the Pennsylvania Natural Diversity Inventory Environmental Review that looks for rare species or habitats within your project area. Sometimes we receive applications that propose work outside of our grant period. Make sure you can complete the project in 3 years and note that the grant agreement won't be executed until January. Be sure to propose your timeline based on that start date. Note that you'll need to attain DCNR approvals prior to the project startup, so include your review and approval time in your timeline. And be sure to complete the resolution and carefully follow any execution directions. We can't emphasize enough how important it is to contact your DCNR regional advisor to discuss your project. They will help you identify if your development project qualifies for a Rivers grant if you are unsure. You'll check off the Rivers Project box in the grant application portal for all waterway conservation and recreation projects. And note, it's important to familiarize yourself with the ready-to-go requirements early in the process, so when it's time to apply, you have your ducks in a row. The following Rivers Development Project ready-to-go requirements differ from other DCNR C2P2 grants. For recreation amenities, the applicant should have ownership or an executed lease agreement with a minimum 25-year term, and the site must be publicly accessible. For stream conservation projects, applicant ownership or a long-term landowner lease agreement or easement is ideal, but we also accept landowner agreements that secure access to the site solely for implementation of the waterway restoration and the monitoring and management of the project for the 25-year minimum term. It's important to discuss this requirement with your project site landowner prior to applying for a grant with DCNR. Ideally, you will report in your application that the landowner has agreed to executing the landowner agreement upon award of funding, or you may provide an executed landowner agreement. We ask that you use the DCNR landowner agreement template as it contains language that fulfills the legislation guidelines behind the funding we provide. You can Google DCNR landowner agreement, and the Community and Watershed Forestry, or CWF, landowner agreement template will generate in the DCNR library. Alter the CWF references to the name of your project. The landowner agreement is required for both private and public property. Note that some conservation projects, such as small dam removals or waterway restorations, may be on private lands. These do not require public access. For the full menu of application requirements, remember early on, reference the ready-to-go checklist for the appropriate grant category, whether that's acquisition, planning, development, or partnerships. These tips regarding public access and ADA requirements will elevate your application above and beyond the baseline requirements, helping you to stand out in the crowd and garner more points. Waterway access projects must meet ADA requirements for parking, walkways, and restrooms. You can go above and beyond by providing specialized ADA equipment like an Easy Dock, addressing mental or sensory disabilities in your design, or including multilingual signage or access through QR codes. Stream restoration and small dam removal projects do not require ongoing public or ADA access. Remember, a landowner agreement giving access over their property to the project site for the implementation and monitoring and stewardship for 25 years is not required when you apply, but pre-coordinating with your site or sites prior to applying elevates your project, and providing the landowner agreement or agreements with your application garners more points. If you are only able to provide limited public access or no public access to the site, explain the benefits of the limited access. These tips address grant application questions and, if followed, will provide a solid grant application. When responding to the planning question on the application, don't cite multiple plans thinking the more the better. Do reference 2 to 3 plans that are most directly related and relevant to what you are doing. References to river or watershed conservation plans and greenway, trail, or access plans are stronger in the case of rivers conservation, recreation, and development applications. You can cross-reference a trail plan to the PA SCORP plan for water trail action items. When putting together your budget, it's important that you remember to detail the total project cost, which is the grant request plus the match, plus any other funding sources used to make the project complete. Be sure that Budget items match what is in your narrative and your site development drawing. Be sure it is very clear in your budget. For development grant budgets, you must plan for professional services in an amount no greater than 20% of your eligible construction costs. Please note, if you have matching funds to pay for professional services fees over and above that 20% cap, they are not eligible costs and cannot be used as DCNR grant match. Only DCNR eligible costs may be used as match. Stated another way, if your professional services come in over 20% of the construction costs, another funding source must be found to cover the overage, and that amount cannot be used as match to DCNR funds. And again, be sure to fill out all sections of the budget, including the descriptions and a breakdown of quantities, etc. Here are more application tips pertaining to the questions. It is important to include project partners. For example, if you are doing a boat launch design or river access plan, consider contacting local fire departments and EMS for their input. For any waterway projects, contact your water department and recreational fishing and boating groups, as they may have funding available or be able to partner in a different way. Also, contact the municipality, as they may have funding opportunities or be able to partner in a different way. Oftentimes, conservation development applicants gloss over the public engagement application question. It is important that you come up with a plan and tell us about it. For example, you can employ outreach and educational components like signage at the site explaining the practice and its benefits. If it is on private land, the signage could face the waterway. You can also propose outreach through press releases and your e-news and social media outlets, highlighting the project, the practice, the purpose, and its benefits. Also, in navigable waters, you can cite your DEP required ATON or aids to navigation signage warning of upcoming construction. Be sure to include signage costs, including water trail signage as applicable, and provide a directional sign on the street noting any access points in your site development drawings and budget. Here's a sample of potential match from federal, state, and foundation funding sources. DCNR regional advisors are available to assist you with your grant application. Go to the DCNR Grants customer service portal to find the regional advisor contact information as well. Thank you for attending the Rivers Grant Program breakout session. Our contact information is on the slide. After reviewing the grant's customer service portal and the associated Rivers program information, please feel free to reach out with any further questions. And for project-specific questions, please contact your regional advisor. We are all here to help.